Welcome to Crowns and Crows, your Crow for All podcast. It is another Tuesday night, 8:30 Eastern. We got the Doc. He's back, drinking out of a coffee mug. Please don't say hello during the intro. Please, just don't at all. And if you're going to say hello,
Noted.
Just say it. Just go, hello. All quiet and everything. Let's be straight.
Angle the camera down.
There we go. Okay, so today we're going to have a short show for everybody. There was no update today, so we got a couple topics we want to discuss. There's one really interesting statement that was put in front of the Legacy update, and we want to talk about some kind of community stuff that Valor wanted to bring up. But let's get to the rundown real quick. Crowfall had a new website, got a new front page design finally. Looks pretty snazzy. We just need to have the news on the front page. That'd be nice. You got a new pledge page. We want to make sure I would love to see a monthly update on that versus just an overall number. They asked, what would your legacy be? Maybe everybody here being an EK queen, hopefully, maybe. And what's your Crowfall safe space? Let's ponder that. Let's just ponder that. So the first topic I think I want to get into, I think we want to just jump right in. Valor, why don't you set up a little debate that was going on this week on the forums?
So, yeah, this was interesting. It was not something that I was tracking, and then it kind of blew up after a random person showed up on the forums and started highlighting the history of a particular guild. I brought it up to Dragon and the Doctor here, and not really sure where this is going to go, but
I know where it's going to go.
He thinks he knows where this is going to go. We'll see. But what ended up happening is there was a thread posted up about hey, Crowfall, what do you think about this guild? They use a Nazi name, and they have named cities in this other game. I believe it was they call it Magic Bane, Shadowbane Emulator. It's whatever the current rendition of Shadowbane is, and they've
one
used
that doesn't crash.
Yeah, maybe, maybe
only sometimes.
Yeah, and so they highlighted all of the stuff that's taking place in Shadowbane and said, what are you guys going to do about this guild? And so then the community manager went to the guild recruitment thread, and it's like, okay, we're closing this thread. This guild isn't going to be able to use this name in this game, and we have a zero tolerance policy against naming guilds with anything having to do with hate groups. So
obviously, Valor has a problem with this.
I have a question.
Because you're a bigot, a racist.
Yeah, I'm pretty clear.
And an awful human being. I partnered up to do a show with.
I grew up in Columbia, Missouri, so clearly that makes me a racist.
No, I'm sorry. No, obviously not.
Which, for those who pay attention to the news, will get that reference. So when I look at this and I see a community manager saying, okay, this guild's name, Wehrmacht, this is related to Nazi Germany, thus it is a hate-related group.
Right.
Is it, I guess the first question is the name Wehrmacht, is that a hate group? Is that a racist entity just in the name itself?
Can we stop right there?
Sure. Let's tackle that.
First of all, I had no idea what it meant because I'm not a World War II buff by any means. I Googled it, and Google brings up Nazi, founder, Adolf Hitler, Nazi. So, Doc, I don't know about you, but when I make a game, I want all the bad people represented by my community. We need the homophobes to come in with whatever stuff. We need a KKK guild for sure.
Clearly.
And the what's that other one where they hold up the signs at soldier funerals with God hates fashions. West Baptist Church.
Westboro Baptist.
Yes, we need them too. The Westboro Baptist Church.
Exactly, the West Bros.
Yeah. I don't want to necessarily get political with this topic, and it's a very challenging line to tiptoe across. But really, when we look at this, you're saying, Nazi Germany, that's clearly racist, easy, cut and dry. And I look at it and I say, okay, this is what Nazi Germany called their army. The army that already existed. Mm-hmm. This is just what they called it during their prominence and power. How the guild uses that name in another game, not related to Crowfall, another game that allows them.
We don't care about another. It was an emulator too, wasn't it?
It's an emulator too.
It's not even a company.
They were naming their cities apparently like Auschwitz and some of this other stuff. Clearly, not the sort of thing Crowfall wants in their game, having that element of it where they're almost an RP, and they're doing it. They're not doing it because these are all a bunch of racist assholes. They're doing it because it's a troll guild. Sure. They're having fun with it and pissing people off for reasonably so.
Right.
In Crowfall, they have not used Nazi symbolism. They have not referenced Nazis. They have not they have not gone to those lengths.
So?
Yet, they might, but they haven't done it yet. And should the name of the Nazi Germany army during that time constitute an automatic ban of that name for the guild?
I think you're splitting hairs here a little bit. I think you're trying to be too careful. Hence the hashtag safe space.
I'm not trying to be careful about anything.
Hashtag safe space.
I'm not trying to be careful about anything.
I know you're prompting the discussion. Go ahead, Doc. Sorry.
If I can jump in, I think it's tough to play devil's advocate here. I think it's a tough line to walk, but the real issue that I think Valor is pointing out is where does the line get drawn? I think that this seems at first like, I can see where they got this and where it's related to Nazis, and Nazis are offensive for obvious reasons, and so that's great. But like, how closely related to Nazis do you have to be banned? What if you name your army after a cool-sounding army in a different part of history that isn't as famous but might be as oppressive?
What did Attila call his army? Because I'm pretty sure they did some pretty messed up stuff.
But we don't think of it that way. Exactly. So we don't think of the Huns necessarily as bad. Or
there
are a number of countries that have had truly oppressive wars with other countries, but that doesn't affect as many people necessarily. And so it does draw a question of where does the line get drawn?
Okay. The line gets drawn at where common sense starts and ends. When you hear Nazis, you think hate group, people that hate Jews, and all the bad stuff associated with Nazis. There's a reason why, there's a term on the internet for when you bring up Nazis and compare people to Nazis. I mean, there's no term for Attila the Hun or any other army like in history. Okay, like it's pretty self-evident that anytime you bring up Nazis, you're either trolling or you're just being really an asshole.
Wouldn't you say that's due to ignorance or laziness, though?
It could.
They're just going with the easiest, and so
young kids these days. I swear to God, what's up with this? It's just common sense. Stop parsing everything.
I look and I say, this guild's had this name for however long.
Okay.
And I am sure, and I can almost say with certainty they've not been allowed to use it in the past. Mm-hmm. But when I look at what I see online, when we Googled Wehrmacht, we didn't see Auschwitz. We didn't see it's not the SS that were that was their mission to go out there. I mean, this was the military fighting force.
When you Google it, it has the symbol of the SS on the right-hand side. At least when I Googled it.
Well, here's another counterpoint. Something just interesting to consider is that we have games about Nazis versus Allies all over the place.
Sure.
When I thought Wehrmacht, for whatever dumb reason, I didn't think Nazis. I just thought Company of Heroes, the most broken army in that game. And I thought I could see why a guild would be named after that. And it would suck to be, in context, maybe knowing the history of these guys in another game, it's obvious. But I could also see how it would really suck to be a guild that happened to come from one of those games. Name your guild after the army you play in game, and then get your name banned in this game. So
first
in
of all,
context, it makes sense.
If you want to make a World War II game and have the Nazis versus the Allies, and you want to have guild names up, fine. I'll give you World War II MMO where you can use that name for a guild. But you have to realize that when you're trying to bring Nazi stuff into other communities or whatever, you should expect a little bit of
True.
maybe we should choose something different. Yeah,
And-
It is also
Yes.
the German word for army, though. To throw one last point out, it is the just generic German word for army.
it might
even
have
though-
turned out to be that way, but let's just Google it and
Right.
play
And,
it
you know,
safe here. I mean,
but-
seriously.
With there being enough ambiguity in terms of someone could say, hey, look, it's like what's going on in chat right now when they're talking about ISIS. ISIS was used as the spy organization inside the cartoon Archer for years prior to it becoming a public, a more prominent name for the actual terrorist organization. A little bit of irony there, but you can't use ISIS now because it means something somewhere. Even though to you, you're just going to hey, yeah, I'm Archer. This is my mom. This is the
ISIS
hot
is
chick.
Or
also
even
the Iowa Student Information System. That's
I mean,
unfortunate.
and so
Or the god in Egypt.
yes, these guys picked this
That's
name.
different, though, my friend.
These guys picked this name to antagonize. And they did it however long ago. I mean, years and years ago, they picked this name. And they have done things in other games that let them, to antagonize the player base and, foster that hate that they want to generate so that they can enjoy the PvP and, troll people. They haven't done any of that stuff in Crowfall yet. They just have their name and they just said, hey, we're coming to Crowfall. Is there enough of a case to ban that?
I think that since the game is not World of Warcraft, where there's multiple millions of people playing, that they have the ability to take each situation in context and kind of take a look at it.
Yeah.
So I think we should just leave it at that for now, only because we can get down the rabbit hole. But what if they
exactly.
use this, or what if they use this, and then it becomes a silly kind of thing where okay, we got to make a list of rules for every single instance, and it just kind of let's just use common sense.
And let's
That's it.
also
Leave it at
let's
that.
also step back for a second and say Artcraft can do whatever the fuck they want.
That's
I
true.
mean, this
for
is
sure.
this is their game. By no means are they required to support First Amendment rights to call your guild whatever you want. You can call your guild whatever you want, and you can play that in any guild game that you want, unless they don't want you playing their game.
Well, I mean, First Amendment rights means you can say whatever you want, but doesn't mean that you
GTFO.
can get rid of the consequences
Exactly.
of doing that too.
So that being said, yes,
you had
Artcraft-
another point. You had another
They can
point you
do
want
this.
to bring up about
And
this too.
we were talking about context, and oh well, if you look at what they did in Shadowbane, there's your context. They are making sure that this is taken in that way. But then we can also say, well, if we're looking at context of guilds in past games, consider a guild like Ebonlore, where there is factual information all over the internet of where they have intentionally cheated, hacked games
Yep.
in order to get an advantage, and yet they're not banned. Nobody bans Ebonlore the name going into their game, and in many ways that's more detrimental not just to the community but to the game, because they go in there and they can, when people start seeing that sort of that sort of concerted effort into breaking PvP, that's like one of the beginning slopes to the end of a game, because people aren't willing to put up with that.
You don't ban them right off the bat because I think we can all agree that you're innocent until proven guilty in a single game. So we're just going to take it at that. However,
I agree.
I'm not a moron. I'm going to watch anybody with an Ebonlore tag like a hawk, and the minute they do something,
Right.
up.
I
gone,
also
see ya.
agree.
So I mean, that's again an easy solution right there. Plus, you get them to spend money on your game, and you buy some boxes
And
everybody's happy.
I think that same logic should be applied to a guild like Wehrmacht.
No, I don't. I disagree.
If their guild name was Hitler, okay, that one's pretty obvious. If their guild name was Auschwitz, okay, obvious. All right, guys, come on. Wehrmacht, they've got it just on that line where I say,
But
okay,
isn't this game being put out in the EU too, though?
it is going to be put out in the
Is
EU.
it
It
said?
is a U.S. guild.
So what? They're promoting it on the official forums, and if it's offensive or as a hate group in the EU, or it's recognized that way, they have to deal with it because they are an international company. So again, it's just easy. Yes, it has to do with the Nazis. Okay, we're going to get rid of it. please don't be part of anything that has to do with the Nazis, and you're safe. I mean, I mean, if we're going to start making clear cut rules, don't have anything to do with the Nazis in your guild title. Just and leave it at that.
You know, it's the safe
Done.
way to go for sure. I'm not going to argue with
Yeah.
picking guild names. I'm not going to argue with you on that. I've picked some really bad ones prior. So
There's nothing wrong with having goofy, silly, sarcastic, or insulting, but let's not have
that's
antagonistic kind of guild names where
it's
That's
again, I see that and I say, this is the sort of scenario where you wait for the community to hang themselves. Give them the rope and let them hang themselves.
Honestly,
but if you go out and you proactively prevent them from doing that, they're just either A, not going to get into your game, which you might not care about, but B, they're also going to now have beef against you, your game, and they will just cause more problems down the road. Why deal with that? Why not just let them screw themselves?
let's just take before we move on to the next topic.
Yeah.
Just look at what Viking put in the chat. I don't know how true that is, or what is, but apparently people have been banned for hate speech or whatever early on in the forums.
It's
so,
possible.
Done.
And there's somebody who actually put up a he questioned the use of the swastika, and the response was, this is not something that we're going to let in the game. It means something in a different culture, but it's just not something we're going to mess with in Crowfall. So there you go. I mean, there's a little bit of a precedent set from Artcraft as well.
I think we're basically all in agreement. However, you just want them to have a chance to hang themselves when they do stuff like that.
I think they will.
But apparently they already have. So that's not worth it.
I don't know.
I want to go to the next part of our show because it's going to be far more interesting whether or not we want guild names, whatever. Right. Ultimately, I don't give a shit about guild names. But I had to give a shit because it was the first topic of our show. So,
Valid.
Doc pointed this out to me because I completely missed that in the update when I was reading. Is from What Will Be Your Crowfall Legacy, and I like to poke fun at their updates sometimes when they have their quote-unquote filler updates.
Right.
And I guess they tied in with the launch of their new website. But I was reading through it, and I was scrolling through. It says, what will your legacy be? How will you play the game? Blah, 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 blah. Path to glory, kill people and win. Yes, let's do that. Path to wealth, whatever. And then, they kind of mentioned intricate web of trade routes and supply lines. I kind of I don't know what that means, but hopefully it's just not role-playing or anything like that. That'd be kind of a cool system, but I don't know. We haven't heard anything about it. And then the path to power is just and across every campaign in every kingdom. Okay, great. It's an EK reference. I'm going to skip these paragraphs. And then I kind of glanced at the last couple paragraphs. I didn't really read it too much, and I called it a day. I was like, hey, Hunger Dome 1.1. It's great. I can't wait. I'm stoked. And then, Doc, why don't you read the quote you gave us before the show that I completely fucking missed? It should be read.
Well, yeah. They said that they have a significant design reveal being announced soon, specifically say that it will require a shift in the way we're thinking and tie together some of the elements in a way that we never expected. They say the idea comes straight from our lore, and it touches on everything from character creation to advancement to death and looting. They also point out some of us will love it, some of us will hate it, and some of us will think it's too hardcore. And I'm really curious what that means.
I just want to know who's going to think it's too hardcore.
I mean,
what group of people?
I don't know what that means. I'm trying to think. We have a game. It basically is you join a campaign. You have all these fluff Eternal Kingdoms where you can put your trophies, build shit, and have fun. You have a game that plays for some extended period of time, probably measured in months, not weeks or days.
Right.
You join in. There's various rule sets, various ways you can team up with people, from factions to guilds to free for all. And you have each campaign, as they call them, are going to have various different rule sets on how you can win. The different things you can do. It's just not going to be a map. There's going to be goals associated with it. And you do it, and then you win, and then it starts all over again. And you bring your character in again, and you have your experience with the character. And sometimes you start all over with no gear. Sometimes you have some gear. Sometimes you have a lot of gear. And that's basically the game. So
Well said.
I think that's all we know about the game.
I didn't know if you're going
Yeah,
somewhere.
I'm trying to think. I'm like, how do
Where does this fit in?
I'm still trying to formulate my own opinion of this whole thing. Like,
Yeah, and we're gonna get to a lot of the what do we think that means, but before
okay, go ahead.
because honestly I don't think any of us really have a great grasp.
No.
But before, I mean,
Love to
what
do
does it
that.
mean to have did they say a major design shift or
Yes, here it
A
is.
design reveal that will require a shift in the way we are thinking.
okay?
And
So
will is capitalized.
tie
like,
together.
you will.
Yeah, like you
reach.
have to change
Like,
what you think
what
about
the
this
fuck
game.
Does that mean?
does that mean there was a design shift, or is that
Shift
there-
in the way you were thinking and tie together some of the elements in a way that you never expected. What? Okay, so since we're going to parse the shit out of this paragraph to no end because we have no other major
people
updates to talk
did not
about.
know what they're getting into?
Yes,
Exactly.
Well, welcome.
Time for some wild speculation.
Welcome to the mindfuck. Okay, so basically, we have to tie together elements of the game. And that's why I kind of rehash what the game is.
Yeah.
What are the elements of the game? You have EK, you have campaign worlds,
You do have the different world bands.
and the,
I think
the
that's
difficulty
something.
levels, right?
Yep.
So,
They call it not so much difficulty levels, just different styles of campaign rule sets.
risks, right?
Right.
Because the closer
Yeah.
you get in the middle of their bands, the
Uh-huh.
higher the risk, right? And that's
Right.
their lore or
And
whatever.
that's how
Because we
they
have to
say
tie
it.
in the lore too. Are you
Yeah.
going to be able to? Is it shifting from campaign to campaign? It's like, are you moving freely
Actually-
in between everything?
A theory that's been said before by various people, I know I myself have thought of it, is I don't know if I never really took it seriously because I didn't think it fit with Crowfall, but based on the words there, if I were to randomly just guess what I thought it was going to be, it was something where you had to progress from certain campaign worlds into the higher bands. Like you had to win God's Reach and then move into the Guild Wars and then move into the Dregs or something like that.
I don't think that's the
maybe.
case.
But yeah, I
And
don't.
we talked about that. I mean,
that doesn't
back
make
when
any
it
sense.
When it first
Right.
came out, is how maybe you can progress, one way or the other.
I do not
Yeah, I
remember
don't know.
talking about that. Only reason why I don't think it's a good idea is only because
You are
if a
old.
campaign is like 1 month, 2 months, do you really want to play the game for however many bands it finally is just to get to the
Exactly.
the one you
Yes.
want to play?
No.
That's dumb.
Yes.
I'm
Oh no,
I'm
no,
just,
not to get
like,
the one you want to
really-
play. No.
really making bets on the wording. There's definitely. I think the bands. It's worth noting that the bands are one of the bands and the EKs and campaigns are probably the two most disconnected.
Yeah, you have the
Parts
EK
of the game.
and you have the campaigns. Those are the two major
So-
block segments of the game.
Right.
Viking Chat's bringing up something that's spawning an idea.
Okay.
So he's saying, maybe it's something that we haven't touched a lot on, like hunger, which, Dragon and you and I and Lake, we danced around that so many times just because we don't know anything about
the whole
it.
survival
Yeah.
element of things. Yep.
And warmth and all that. And I'm thinking to myself, all right, well, if you look at the bands, and the hunger's in the middle, so maybe the shortest band, or maybe the dregs have the shortest life cycle, and they get longer the further out you go. So campaign length is actually determined by what band you're in. That could have some pretty major impacts on what people play and how frequently they go in.
What if they made it so that the Eternal Kingdoms had to survive the hunger as well?
No,
But you
because I
kept
think
everything.
that's their Barbie
Yeah.
house type
The
of thing.
base-
Well,
They're kinda
right, but they said it's going to be more hardcore than some people want it to be.
okay,
The
but
baseline
then
with Eternal Kingdoms is you can't lose anything.
it's your
so-
player housing shit.
Yeah, you maybe resources, but
But even so,
any
does that
buildings and
require a
stuff.
major require a shift in the way you're thinking though? Like the EK
Mm-hmm.
is difficult, or the inner bands are faster than the outer ones. That to me,
Well,
that's
I
just
mean-
a cool game element that might be
So
fun or
that's-
not.
That's where I know the basis. I get the argument. The basis is the EKs. You can't lose anything. But there's still some things where like the parcels or whatever could potentially be rebuilt, but you could still lose their effectiveness if you're lost in the
So
EK.
you have to go
If
buy
you
new
had to
parcels for
defend,
the cash shop.
or if you have to rebuild them with resources, so like they get destroyed, but you still own the parcel which lets you build it. That's the only part that requires
So
the
EK
cash shop.
upkeep from playing the campaign.
Yeah,
So it's more,
they've talked
more
about
in the Arc Age.
they've talked about how the heck do these, there's been discussions and posts about how did the EKs get upkeep? We're just going to have resources, and then they introduce gold to kind of solve that problem, and there's never really been a clear idea.
Yeah,
but what
then,
if the EKs are really like a co-op, like you're surviving the hunger, and there's actually a
so they're making. Well, they've always. Well, I mean,
And
like I'm going.
zombies.
and zombies. Yeah,
They should do. You should start off with like being able to make a bow, and then advance to a rifle, and
yeah.
Well, I mean, like
But even having the hunger mechanics and stuff. If the people in the EK were actually struggling to survive on some small level, that could build an economy around people needing to bring resources out of the.
that is a
campaigns
drastic
that
shift,
has-
though.
Exactly.
yeah.
But that's a dramatic shift in game design, only because Todd has said on multiple occasions the campaign is the game.
It's
The
true.
campaign's the game.
Yeah,
but-
like everything
but
is
but
about
it
the
would
campaign.
it's about the campaign, but the need to take resources out of a campaign isn't really there.
But you don't need
Right.
the EK either, though.
You don't. No, you don't.
So
But
true.
if you want it to be able to maintain it,
But I don't think that's a big shift in thinking of the game. Because if you don't give a shit
Maybe.
about the EK,
it gives
then nothing
a
changes.
significant it gives a significant change, especially if you lose
No.
the buffs bonuses that you get from
but
your
they don't last a
artifact
very
and
long
such.
time either, though. They wear off. We found that out a couple weeks ago.
Yeah,
My whole point, like me, you, and Lakes are always kind of interested in the dregs. We want to go in, clean start, play the game, free
Right.
for all, that whole type of deal. That's where I like to play. And so, if I can't take anything out and I can't bring anything in, I don't give a shit what happens in between
Exactly.
campaigns. So, this statement will have no shift in my thinking at all because nothing changes for me.
Well,
And-
unless you still have to have, like, what if the danger to your EK or whatever EK you're a part of can be something that, like, if it impacts them, they could engineer a way for it to impact you.
But it's no longer the Eternal Kingdom if the hunger is hitting it because it's eternal.
That's true. That's
Because
true.
they did talk about lore, and I hate talking about lore.
I
It
think
comes straight. The
one-
idea comes straight from the lore. The lore is all about
the hunger
rolled
consuming everything.
being destroyed. Exactly. So it's the
I mean-
gods they're fighting. Maybe it has to do with gods and shit like that. Maybe it has to do with like the lore.
That's probably my second biggest guess. Would be if I were to guess something else, it'd be something to do with the gods. Like you have to. The tournament involves winning a combination of the dregs to get in, and then the other stuff to gain certain gods' favors. And I don't know. That would be my second guess. But I really think like the number one piece that we've harped on, them not telling us how it'll work, is why do resources matter to anyone other than within the campaigns? And I think if they're going to do a big reveal,
It's
I do
also
think
hardcore.
that looking at that might be
It
a
is.
part of
and,
it.
And and Blixtev and Todd, they talked about it, and when I say they talked about it, I mean they danced around it. They said,
But
they're
they
like,
didn't
oh,
waffle.
if you
Blixtev
don't
says
care
they
about
didn't
the
waffle.
EKs, then the resources, it's whatever. If you care about them, it's great. And we're like, wait, but that's not really answering the question.
Exactly.
I mean, if they don't matter, then they don't matter. And
I don't think
just that they
I don't think he wanted to say a big portion of the game that people are excited about doesn't matter. He never a dev never wants to say a portion of the game that you're buying parcels for and they're selling in their cash shop for castles and shit like that doesn't matter. They never want to say a portion of the game doesn't matter. So that's why they were dancing around it. I mean, it might not matter to you and me because we just want to play the game and do some PvP.
Exactly.
But some people want to build castles and have all their shit look great, whatever. People love that stuff, and more power to them. Blixdev is
So,
or
what they're trying to
Mr.
say.
Blair's a hardcore gamer and a PvPer. He's building the game for them, but he probably doesn't give a shit about the EKs as much as a lot of other people. I'm putting words in his mouth.
What they're
but
trying to say,
whatever.
and I'm going to summarize this the best I can into a single sentence. What they're trying to say is that the people who don't care about EKs will want to win campaigns for the fact of winning campaigns, and the people who care about EKs will want to win campaigns to be able to export resources from EKs.
Sure.
But they will be at a disadvantage because they're trying to save resources to export from campaigns. thus making it significantly more difficult for them to maximize their their goal, as opposed to the people who are just there to fuck shit up.
That is not one sentence, by the way. Or a lot of unused semicolons
But
somewhere in there.
But I think it's a valid point. Like, I think we all know that the core community of this game is the people who want to win just to win.
Yeah.
And you want to motivate. I'm probably a broken record at this point. You want to motivate the other people to play the same game.
What do you mean,
You
other
don't want
people?
them playing the people who aren't that, because that's just not a big enough community to
I'm just saying,
sustain
what do you mean,
a
you
game
people?
of this size long enough. I know, yeah.
Making a bad
But-
joke.
But essentially, the other people want to be motivated to win, but they have to be playing the same game. If they're playing a totally different
Well, here's the
game,
thing, like,
you
the people that
end
wanna-
up in this apples to oranges thing.
The people that want to juice up their EK are going to want to play the campaigns that have a lot of materials coming out of them. And that's probably going to be a good balance of somewhere between the hardest or the highest risk and the lowest risk, only because they want to hoard their resources, but in order to get some, they want to probably bring their resources into a campaign so they can win more resources more easily.
Exactly.
So it's going to, a vicious cycle somewhere in the middle. So they don't want to play the dregs because they can't bring any of their shit in there. And more often than not, the people that really care about their EK are not going to be the type of player that wants to play in the dregs in the hardcore PvP.
Once they figure out that they're at a
We're getting far away
disadvantage
from the thing is
and significant disadvantage,
We're getting far away from
imagine what the forums are going to look like when they realize that they're at a disadvantage just trying to be able to get anything out of a campaign. I mean, regardless of which one it is.
We don't know what getting
it's-
shit out of the campaign looks like at this point, so I'm not.
I mean, we've got a decent idea
Yeah,
that
we
you
do.
win, you get to maximize, how much you take out. So unless they change that, you're not maximizing how much you take out, and people always want the most efficient way to play a game. It is, consistently everyone is going for efficiency. So
It's true.
when I see this, I am seeing a future headache, and currently, no one's brought any Advil to the table.
First of
So-
all, we were all forgetting, and somebody mentioned this at the beginning. Some of you will think the implications are far too hardcore. That statement alone tells me to say it's probably not has to do anything with the EK, because anything with the EK is far from being hardcore.
Well, but wouldn't a change to the EK that makes them suffer more? Wouldn't that be the
No,
community
because
most likely to complain about it being too hardcore? Like,
But why
if you
would they
make
want
the
to fuck
dregs
with the
more
EK?
tar,
Like, that
who's
does
gonna
nothing
think
for the
that?
game. But changing the EK or making it hardcore doesn't make the game any different for the people that are actually hardcore. And fucking around with the EK just pisses people off for
well,
no return.
The hardcore
right?
PvPers, hardcore PvPers aren't going to think a game is too hardcore.
Exactly.
I mean, period.
No, but they don't want to deal with the shit that takes them away from killing people, because there's no killing people in the EK. Unless they're
True.
going to...
Yeah, but
But that
taking
wouldn't
people
be-
away from PvP isn't
Right.
hardcore.
What's that?
Yeah, I think when they say some people will think it's too hardcore, the only people who are going to think it's too hardcore are the non-hardcore
Sure.
PvPers. So it
And that's
can't
gonna
be like if it's changing things in PvP, who's going to think it's too hardcore? That's already the hardcore.
No, what
people.
I'm saying is that if you're forcing the PvPers... Well, no. All right, yeah, I understand what you're saying. I'm just saying, like, why would
Yeah,
you want
it's-
to... Why would you... Like, the hardcore PvPers are already, like, once the campaign ends, they already want to get back into the campaign and start a new game. Like, they're not going to, sit around for a month in the EK or a week in the EK doing shit. They want to get back into killing people.
True.
So they don't care
Yeah.
about the EK. So if you change the EK to make it more hardcore, you're only pissing off the people that wanted to do the EK in the first place, and the people
But-
that didn't care about the
you're
EK in
right.
the first
You're
part
right.
are not even going
100%.
to care about the change, because it's just
But
like whatever. I just want to get back to the game.
the people in the EK who do care can build an economy that sustains
And-
that is relevant to the other people.
And
But
you
it's-
might snag the people who don't care about EKs to now start caring about EKs because it affects their PvP. And not in a, oh, now you have to do all this PvE kind of way, but okay, this might not be all that bad.
True.
And,
True.
It ties it all together, which is like what the doctor is saying. What we're really waiting for is how are you guys going to tie it all together?
Okay, so you guys give me a flash of insight here that my retarded brain probably didn't pick up from the discussion. So we have the Eternal Kingdom. It surrounds everything, right?
Right.
So instead of it just being player housing and just nonsense, they want to figure out a way where they can tie all the elements of the game together.
Right.
Right. So we're going back to my definition of elements, EKs, and campaigns.
Mm-hmm.
The only thing they're contradicting themselves with is they've always said the campaigns are the game. The EK is like the locker room that you go in and you piss around, and that's it.
Yeah.
So it has to be a change to a lot of their. If it has to do with making the EKs actually something you have to work in or deal with to make your campaigns more efficient, especially like the dregs where you can't bring anything into the campaign, so there has to be some other kind of influence there. Then that's going to be a shift in their design theory when it comes to that.
Yeah.
And I don't get a sense that they didn't spend the last 6 months preaching about, the EKs are the locker room, the campaigns are the game, to suddenly just change direction. They don't. It doesn't seem to me that they're going to change that much of a direction.
Well, and again, the EKs, as I said, there's your baseline earlier. And from there, can they use them to tie everything together? Yes. How? We don't know. But that's where I see, gods, hunger, EKs, those being the three cornerstones of what I expect this announcement to be. That should have been out today. Where was our update? Blickstaff tried to slide off that
some Airwolf interview from MMORPG.
An Airwolf interview
with no new information.
Where they just talked about what's already about in the
Let's
game.
summarize the shit from the last 4 weeks.
Airwolf, come on, buddy, throw some heavy hitting questions.
Let's do it.
Come on, have some fun with it.
I didn't even know that was Airwolf.
Oh yeah, it's out there, and oh man, Blickstuff, he's I'm sure he's got the they went into his house and took his microphone away, and he's got a
wants
webcam.
To share what the game
He's got a
is.
webcam over his shoulder.
Valor
and,
needs the Mission Impossible.
Todd and Gordon are just
Studios.
watching, make sure he
Valor
doesn't type
come
anything
down from the
Exactly.
ceiling and take pictures of shit. You're
It's
only
like, I think-
15 minutes away.
It's like I think some of them we will watch the stream just to make sure he's not telling us stuff we want to know.
Right.
Yes.
It's like Gordon's in,
CNC
and Gordon's in,
exclusives.
shows up and he's in chat a little bit, and in reality he's just being like, all right, okay, cool. Nobody's telling these guys anything yet. We want to make this fun. So yeah.
So ultimately, at the end of this conversation, I want to wrap up the show a little bit early before we start running into just rehashing shit all the time. We haven't come to any conclusion.
Oh no.
No, we're just taking.
I can't
No,
honestly think, unless they do a major shift in their game design, what this could possibly be. I'm stoked because you know what? They're probably going to drop other information we didn't have, so we couldn't form a good opinion on it. I'm
Oh
going
yeah,
with that. Going with
I
that.
think
It's
whatever
safe.
they tell us, it's fair to say it's going to be something that we couldn't have figured out except by guessing or speculating. I don't
Being
think there are
lucky.
hints towards it at
Yeah,
all.
I don't think so either. Definitely. All right, I think it's a good place to wrap up, guys, for the week.
Yeah.
I
Sounds
think
good
so,
to
too.
me.
All right, guys, have a great night. We did a 38-minute show. I wanted to be at around 30 minutes, but we did halfway between half a show and a full show, so I think we're pretty good. Like us on all the social media stuff. Valor's on top of all that. Make sure you pay attention to on Twitter because he engages everybody there every single week. Doc, thanks for coming back on the show. I think
Yeah, definitely.
we're gonna keep you around. You're
Yeah.
allowed to be on our show. Fancy.
The doc has joined Crowns and Crows, and he's now assimilated, and he'll be around, and we'll get to figure out what to do.
Plugged into
Like
the
shows
hive
up.
mind.
Maybe
Right,
maybe
guys.
I'll be able to take a vacation for a change.
Yeah, there we go. All of a sudden, he's doing solo shows in 2 weeks because
Yeah, the doctor's
guys.
just running
Me
Crowns and Crows.
talking at the screen.
Little
I'll
does
bring
he
my
know.
cats on. That'll
Little
work.
does he
There we
know.
go. All right, so next week, 8:30 Eastern, every single Tuesday. If you guys have anything you guys want to talk about, our email is always at groundsandcrows@gmail.com. Valor takes a look at that every month or so, once a month, right? Bouts?
Ish.
Best way to reach him is on Twitter if you have any questions, concerns,
Definitely.
anything you want to talk about. I think we do a pretty good job covering everything since there's not too much to cover right now.
Yeah.
So,
Probably
again,
should have done it.
thank you everybody for watching. We're going to cut out here. No after show today because we're doing
No after
No,
show.
after show.
We're gonna go drink and make fun of the debate.
Oh, we just dragged politics into a gaming show.
Womp womp.
Well, just
That's,
cut
and
that
there's
part
another
out.
Valor joke. Have a good night, everybody. See you
Take care.
later.